Red Dead Redemption 2 has a massive cast of characters, and we can spend hours talking about any one of them. But though the game's story revolves around Arthur, Dutch, and John acting as the three primary pillars holding up the entire structure, there are other fascinating personalities in the cast as well. The most fascinating of these, perhaps, is Sadie Adler. Coming into Red Dead Redemption 2, no one could have guessed that Sadie would go on to become as prominent and as interesting as she did. That's not just because she was an unknown quantity at the beginning of the game, having been absent in Red Dead Redemption 1, but also because the game could have very easily mishandled her arc and turned it into a very generic revenge story. To be fair, on paper that's what it is. During the prologue, Dutch, Arthur, and co. rescue Sadie from members of the O'Driscoll gang and their unspeakable crimes against her, which included the murder of her husband. And for much of the game, the thing driving her is the blind rage and bloodlust that Loss incites within her. But though Sadie's arc is, at its core, a good old revenge story, it's how it's told and executed that makes it so good. What's most interesting about her as a character is that unlike most other non-antagonistic main characters in Red Dead Redemption 2, Sadie isn't looking to better herself or right some wrongs in her past. No, she is instead moving in the exact opposite direction. Sadie's arc is very much a downward spiral. Though she spends the first few hours of the game in a shell of grief, when she emerges from that shell, the thing that drives her more than anything else is that rage. And that rage is what defines much of what she does going forward. It's clear throughout the game that, unlike the likes of Micah and Dutch, Sadie's got something of a moral compass. When she keeps her head, she's got the right sensibilities, and her loyalty to and friendship with Arthur, and John and Charles later on, definitely show her in a positive light. But her actions are consistently rash and reckless. When she sees red, she doesn't stop to think about, well, anything really. From the execution of Colm O'Driscoll in Saint Denis to that time when Arthur's scoping the prison John is in from a hot air balloon, to multiple other instances, Sadie often loses control of the situation and ends up disregarding any plans they might have had and going on a rampage. And it's something that happens even after Colm O'Driscoll dies. Even during the epilogue when she's riding with John, it's clear that she still acts on impulse a lot of the time and doesn't have any issues with extreme violence. It's a testament to the game's writing then that, in spite of all of that, Sadie never comes across as a negative character. She is often a loose cannon, sure, but Red Dead Redemption 2 smartly strikes a balance between showing her fierce side and the softer side of her personality. Her willingness to help Arthur, John, Abigail, and Jack at the end, as things with Dutch and Micah begin to come to a head, shows that in spite of all of her bloodlust, she still has a firm moral compass when it comes to others. Sadly, her acceptance of the fact that she's gone too far in her violent spiral to ever make it back out is also plain to see in these moments. At the end, her thinking is very much the same as Arthur's. She may not have any hope for a normal or peaceful life going forward, but she can at least help John and his family escape with their lives. Red Dead Redemption 2 also deserves credit for how gradually and meticulously it shows Sadie's transformation. With such plot lines, many games would easily fall into the trap of abruptly showing a complete change in the character rather than really selling it and mistaking telling for showing. But as it does in so many other areas, Red Dead Redemption 2 shows and doesn't tell, which proves to be far more effective. Sadie's brief appearance in Red Dead Online makes it clear that even before the death of her husband, she was by no means a meek and mild-mannered woman, and his death didn't magically bring out something in her that had never existed. But even after that, the progression of Sadie's arc is slow and steady. For the first few hours of the game, she's barely even featured, and is in essence a prop in the background. She first comes to the forefront when she helps Arthur fight off a bunch of raiders while they're coming back to their camp from Rhodes. And from that point onward, it's a slow and steady climb for her. From the O'Driscoll's assault on Shady Belle, to how she steps up to protect the gang while Dutch and Arthur are in Guarma, to how she's the one who convinces Arthur that the two of them are going to be enough to rescue John from the prison. After Guarma, in fact, she's a pretty prominent fixture in the story. All of which is to say that Sadie's arc is emblematic of Red Dead Redemption 2's approach to storytelling as a whole. It takes its time getting where it needs to go, but the gradual pacing and the constant build-up of momentum makes it all that much more convincing. Given how prominent the likes of John, Arthur, and Dutch are, Rockstar could have easily sidelined most of the other side characters in Red Dead Redemption 2, but they chose instead to create some excellent characters outside of that main trio to bolster the story even further, and Sadie's perhaps is the best of that lot. Like Arthur, the fact that she's never brought up in Red Dead 1 is a bit of an inconsistency, especially because unlike Arthur, she's still alive and in touch with John at the end of Red Dead 2. But looking at her arc in the second game in isolation, one can't help but be satisfied.
And that wraps it up. If you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing to our channel. We upload new videos daily, so make sure you don't miss them by subscribing. We appreciate your support, and we thank you for checking us out.